Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on our final episode of our Sage 300 webinar series, Working in the New Normal. If you're new to the series and want to learn more about solutions that give you control, automate business processes, or enhance visibility, then please reach out to your assigned account manager to receive more information. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Stephen Phelps, and I'm the marketing manager for Acumen. And I'm back with Ian and Nick from the Acumen team, and today's topic is maximizing efficiency across your teams. With some businesses slowing down, now is the time to take advantage of productivity and efficiency gains within your industry. And in order to thrive in the new normal, businesses must gain an advantage over their competitors. So today, we'll be going over ways on how you can become more efficient in multiple departments and showcase solutions that will be able to help you through this pandemic and beyond. Please note that all attendees will be in listen-only mode, and we'll be opening up the chat option for questions after each solution demo. So with that, let's go ahead and get started and move along to the agenda. Thank you, Nick. So throughout the presentation, we'll dive deeper into answering a few key questions when it comes to efficiency. Why do we need to be efficient? What parts of a business can benefit from efficiency gains? How do clients become more efficient? And then go into a few solution demos with Acumen Tools, EDI, warehouse management, and Sage Alerts and Workflow. We do have a lot to cover in this 1 hour session, so I will now pass it on to Nick.
Thanks very much, Stephen. So the first question, may seem pretty obvious, and I think for a lot of us it is, right? But why do we need to be efficient? And really what I wanted to talk about here was some things that you may not have thought of, right? So being more efficient could lead to ultimately increased operator efficiency. It could lead to reduced costs. It can lead to, improved bottom line profits. It could lead to being, keeping business as usual or business as normal with a reduced headcount due to the circumstances we currently find us in. It may lead you to working more closely or more seamlessly with different or new trading partners to, enhance your offerings to your customers. So, really, we're going to talk about a few ideas and a few solutions that we've helped clients with. For those of you that are repeat attendees, that's been our theme, right? These are real tools and products that we've done implementations for, with clients over the last few months, just to help them through these times and kind of maintain momentum and keep things going in this new norm, as Stephen said. So, really, just the goal here is to manage your business, to continue doing so under the current conditions, both economic, both health-wise, and just keep things going the best we can. So efficiency is a huge, huge, huge part of that. What parts of a business can benefit from efficiency gains? And for those of you, again, that have been on for the last few, this is kind of my trick question, right? Well, everyone certainly can. And we're going to show a few examples for the various different teams, the sales team, the accounting team, back office team, and then also kind of the warehouse operations team working with inventory and those types of transactions as well. We didn't forget about them. So let's start right into our first tool here. So nobody likes doing data entry, right? It's just a necessary evil to put data into the system in order to get information out of the system, just something we have to do. You cannot generate a report to give you anything meaningful without first keying in some data throughout a time period to, collate for that information. So the team of developers we have here at Acumen has built a suite of tools to make data entry easier, by leveraging the power and comfort of Excel, really. So, we've worked with Sage 300 for many, many years. We know all the things that it does very well, and also means we know some of the things it doesn't do very well. And, we've attempted to improve those, and I want to show you some of those tools now. So, this is a full suite of Excel-based tools. There's about 44 or 45 of them now, and we're continuously adding to them. It's geared to and designed to help save time and money by cutting out data entry and making it more efficient. And I'm going to show you some simple examples, and then I'm going to also show you some more complex type transactions where we've helped with things like allocations and accruals and commission statements. And then also it's not just transaction files. We've done updates for master records, vendors, customers, GL accounts, account groupings for better reporting. So really anytime you need to make mass changes or mass data entry, think of an Acumen tool first, because there's a good chance we've designed a tool to make that data entry more efficient for you. So let's take a look at a few of those here. And I have a few of them kind of set up for us. So the first one here is our GL transaction journal entry tool. And a lot of clients will use this to, just cut and paste here because this is Excel. They're comfortable. I can use my database ID column and my Finder here to launch my Finder if I have multiple companies. I can use my Finder to search for different GL accounts in this particular case. So I may not know something when I can launch the Finder and search for it. I may not be sure of what goes in a particular column. So if I click on my help button here, it's going to tell me what this tool does. It's going to also give me a comment about each column and show me what is expected in each of those different columns. You can see up at the top here, the header information that I have is, do I want this to be an auto reversing entry? Yes or no. Do I want this to be auto posted? Yes or no. I can see that it is balancing for me. If I take this out for a second, I can see that it is out of balance. So it's automatically kind of checking things for me. And then when I'm ready, I can click import, and it's going to check, make sure I have security rights to the company or companies that I'm working with here, make sure I'm allowed to do the data entry that I'm about to do, and it's going to push that entry directly to the Sage General Ledger for me. So lots of clients just use that and save it for many different types of GL journal entries. Now it is Excel, so you can save multiple copies of this. You can save one, Nick might have one to do accruals, and Ian might have one to record the commissions or revenue entry or something like that, to do an allocation. So there's no limit to the number of times we can save these, because it really truly is just an Excel file where we've added a bit of Acumen magic to it to do the data entry for us into Sage 300. Now, the one we're looking at here is where I wanted to get into a little bit more complex type transaction, right? So what you're looking at is the entries to record amortization for a loan schedule. And because this is Excel, I'm able to do something like this. Now, this is just an example, a very simple one, but I took the top here to build myself a loan amortization schedule where I can put in the interest rate of my loan, the number of payments per year, how many extra payments am I going to make, or any extra money I want to make on it to pay it off faster, a description so that the lender name comes in as a description in my entry. And then it's going to go ahead and calculate out the scheduled payment for me and, watch down, show me my ending balance here where my principal goes down to 0. So, Excel did that for me. I put in the formulas for that and it calculated everything that I need. Well, what happens here is, because I have this linked out to that other tab using the power of Excel, I have all of my monthly entries for me here. And so as I build this, change this, tweak this, my import tool will automatically change as well. And then I can just import that to Sage 300. So again, kind of just using the power of Excel, using everyone's comfort with Excel, and turning that into a really nice, really efficient way to import data into Sage 300. Another example, staying with the journal entries for now, is here's an example of a payroll accrual where I added a second tab here to go through the salaries of all of our individuals. And let's say, it's going to be 2020 and I want to do an accrual for July because we're going to close this. And maybe we have 5 days because of how our pay period falls. And you can see that it quickly recalculated everything for me based on my annual, weekly, and daily salary for all of my employees. Well, here I have all of my employees listed out, and I can see these are links back to that tab. So I can see, it's going to pull through John, Paul, Ringo, and Stu's payroll accrual for me automatically. I definitely want this one to be an auto reversing entry. So just like I'm going to key it into Sage, I can say, yes, auto reverse this in the next period. And I want this one to post so that it automatically will be reversed in the next period for me. I don't need to check it again once it goes to the general ledger. So now, again, just recapping, using the comfort of Excel, where I can calculate things, I can build all the formulas I need, and a little bit of Acumen magic here to import and push this data back into Sage 300 for me. Kind of breaking away from that for a moment now, we can look at something like a budget maintenance screen here, a tool, excuse me, where I might use my finder to select and pull through multiple different GL accounts. You can, of course, go into Sage 300, open the budget maintenance screen, pick a single account, edit it, enter all the values. Well, that absolutely works, but it is not necessarily the most efficient way to do that data entry. And certainly importing it, working in Excel, copying things over. So if this revenue is going to be negative $100,000, I can copy that and paste it across, copy things down, build formulas to calculate things, increase things by certain percentages. We've even gone so far as to help clients with maybe this tab is a Sage intelligence report to pull information from last year, to pull information on statistical data that you have in Sage or in another system to help you calculate your budget. And when you're ready, I can import that. And I can select if I'm going to import that to the next year, 2021, and then which of my 5 budget sets would I like to put these values into. So same things that I can do in the Sage 300 screens there, I'm now able to do in a nice, easy, efficient layout using Microsoft Excel. Bank entries is another one. So I see lots of clients on the call here, and I know I've certainly had this discussion with, and certainly all of our consultants have had the same discussion, where if I want to edit cash or adjust cash or affect cash, I have to do that through the bank, right? I can't do a GL journal entry. Well, no problem. We have a very similar tool so that you can do it in Excel. I can cross multiple companies. Here's an example where I'm going to do a withdrawal for Sample Company Inc. and a deposit for Sample Company Limited. And maybe this is a repayment of a loan from one company to another. So kind of an intercompany bank transaction. But if I wanted to do this without the Acumen tool, I'd have to log into Sample Company Inc., go over to the banks, enter that deposit transaction, post it, log out, go over to Sample Company Limited, log in, go to the banks, enter that withdrawal entry, that deposit entry, excuse me. So, much more efficient to paste it in here or even do the data entry in here, using my finders and my lookups, and click import and push that money directly to the bank transaction section for Sage 300. And lastly, for our operations team and people on the call here, and again, this is just an example. There are many more of these. As I said, we're up to about 45 or 46 of them. But here's one that's really powerful, because we work with clients all the time with purchase orders, and they want to manage the expected arrival date, and they want to make sure that that is accurate, so that I know when I can fill an order. I can efficiently say, okay, we're gonna ship this out. I can start to schedule people, to be in the office at the right time, especially if we're working partial weeks or we're trying to work remotely where possible, in this new normal, quote unquote. Well, what this tool does is allows me to select a vendor, or all vendors if I want to, and I can retrieve in all of the open POs for that particular vendor. I can see the date of the PO, which vendor it was for, which line item am I dealing with, what the item is on that particular line, and how many I've ordered and when it's expected. Well, what I can do from here then is because it's Excel, right? I can do all the things, all the tools and all the functions in Excel. So I could filter for just one product. If this vendor said I'm going to ship everything except the A1105, I can filter that out. I can, if I have multiple vendors, or they said everything is on the March POs is going to be delayed because of shipping delays due to COVID. Well, I can just highlight those and update just those. So again, I can efficiently work with lots of data and fill in new expected arrival dates and update that and push that in one click up to Sage 300. Without a tool like this, I can still do that data entry, but just not anywhere near as efficiently. I'd have to go to each PO, go to each line, and update those dates line by line by line. And you can see that I have 6 or 7 POs here with many different lines that I can do by copying down, by pasting, by quickly entering into Excel, where we're all really comfortable, and pushing update and sending that back over to Sage 300. Okay, so lastly, before we open it up for some questions, just want to open this document here. And this is a document that the account management team can send out to you. It just lists all of the different tools we have by module. So you can see there's general ledger, bank, payables, inventory, receivables, job costing, payroll. And it'll give you a little bit of description of what each tool does and how it works and how you might use it, some examples there. So a really nice document that we can shoot out to you to take a look at and see if there's anything that would be useful for you and your team in the current kind of situation or work environment. So with that, Stephen, let's go ahead and pause and see if there's any questions.
Thanks, Nick. So at this time, we'll open up the chat option. So if you guys do have any questions, please feel free to write them in. There were a few that came in already, so we can go ahead and begin. The first one, it says, can Acumen build a custom tool?
Yes, actually, we certainly can. This suite is kind of a canned suite where if you subscribe to the suite, every time we add a new one, you'll get that new tool added in your bundle or suite as well. But we certainly have taken these and tweaked them, right? Because as I said, we do have development teams here at Acumen, and we've done things for, specific third-party modules like Concur and things like that, where we've taken a very similar tool and brought that in. So if you do have a specific requirement, wherever that question came from, feel free to reach out and talk to your account manager. We can certainly design something based on the tool you have in mind. As long as we can get data out of the other system, we certainly can build it where we can push it into Sage 300.
Perfect. I'm just going to wait a few more seconds to see if any other questions come in, and then if not, we can move on to the next section. All right, we got another one. It says, can I import data to more than one company at a time?
Yes, absolutely. And I showed that very quickly with the bank tool here. I kind of glossed over it, but Sample Company Inc. and Sample Company Limited. So every single one of our tools here is designed so that I can enter multiple different databases. And if you don't know the database code, no worry, we can use the Finder tool here and it will tell you that. So you can see it. This is my Sample Company Limited code, or my Sample Company Inc. code.
Perfect. I think that's all the questions we have for this section. So I think we can move on to EDI.
Okay, and before we move on, I just want to offer one other thing. So if this is something of interest to you, reach out to your account manager and let them know that you attended this session, and we'll set up a free trial for our 3 most popular tools for you, and you can give it a try, see if it works for you, and see if it would benefit for you, just as a kind of a thank you for attending our webinar this afternoon. Okay, so let's move on. The next tool that I'd like to talk about is something that we've done to really help the sales team, and we've implemented an EDI solution. And so what is EDI? Well, it stands for Electronic Data Interchange, and really is a way to efficiently and automatically transfer data back and forth from vendors to your Sage 300 system with various different touch points. So you're going to save time and money really by cutting down the time it takes to process orders, both the time it takes to either import them or key them in, and the time it takes to actually get them, because they're going to come in automatically and instantaneously. Shipping notices are going to go out, delivery notices are going to go out, payment information is going to go out. So, you'll see lots of different vendors out there where if you have to do EDI, or one of your customers or one of your vendors says that you need to do EDI to continue doing business with them, just let us know and we can help you navigate that. You can see here that there are two third-party options that we work with all the time, TrueCommerce and Edisoft. Both have some both do EDI very well, but both also have some other kind of complementary products. So sometimes TrueCommerce is a better fit, sometimes Edisoft is a better fit, and our team can certainly help you do that. But so in this solution where we're talking about now, or this situation, we really helped this client decrease their DSO, or their days sales outstanding, which ultimately led to better cash flow just by taking away the need to type in orders. They also didn't make any mistakes in orders then, because they're not rekeying anything. And then happier customers, faster turns, decreased DSO, ultimately more profitable business in the end. So, I mentioned sales team here, but really this is kind of, again, helping the entire operations team and also the entire organization ultimately by eliminating that manual data entry and integrating the inbound orders, outbound fulfillments, and outbound inventory. So let's take a look at what an EDI solution might look like. And I like to explain it. This is a good picture, in my opinion, because it becomes kind of the center, or the spoke, the hub with the spokes pointed to all the different other pieces of your e-commerce or your kind of supply chain solution. So of course there's the accounting piece that has to have the orders and houses the inventory. Well, there could be sales tax involved, there could be reporting, there could be a web store or e-commerce platform up front. There could be this could be other things that are in the cloud or on-prem or a hybrid hosted solution. There could be manufacturing involved, which Ian is going to touch a little bit about, manufacturing, bin tracking, warehouse management in a little bit, and fulfillment of the orders here. Where am I pulling that? So it can sit in the middle truly and help connect all of these things. And by connecting them, we're gaining efficiency. We are allowing the data to happen, the data exchange or interchange to happen automatically, and cutting down data entry, ultimately becoming more efficient. So this is a sample of a picture of Edisoft, right? Just to pick one of the two that I had mentioned on a previous slide. And, they have a solution here for order management, and that's really the EDI, the mailboxes, the notifications, the all those different numbers with the ASNs and price information and product sequencing and status notifications and routing instructions and all those documents that are involved with a big vendor like Amazon or Home Depot, which you may or may not know about if you're dealing with them. And then all of the other options that you may or may not have some or all of these here. You might have a commerce build web store that we talked about last week, or Shopify or Amazon, or perhaps more than one of those, right? You might have sales tax working with Avalara. Well, we can put all of those together to connect them to your Sage 300 system to provide a much more efficient system. And then, as I mentioned, TrueCommerce and Edisoft both have some other options. Well, Edisoft also takes it a bit further to add something called Quick Pack, where they can then also help you with the order fulfillment part of it by scanning things, by routing things, by telling you where to put things away when they are actually received, and then also notifying your vendors and your customers automatically with the right documents, the right transaction identifiers, so that everything is staying in compliance with the larger vendors, and also everyone is notified at the right time automatically. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and take a few more questions, Stephen, and see if anything come in.
Yes, it looks like there is a few questions that came in. First one is, what transaction types can we automate with EDI?
Okay, good question. So if you think about this, all of the different notifications, and I have a huge list of them here, but and it's certainly something that we can send out, but each one has a number, all the way from like motor carrier load to invoice number, which is an 810, to a purchase order acknowledgement, which is an 855, to a text message, which is an 864. So I will not bore you and read all of them for you, but either between Adisoft or True Commerce, every different type of transaction is set up and can be automated, all the way from kind of a 204 to a 997. And I know that may not mean a lot to everyone on the call, but we certainly can send out a document and make sure that if you are going to deal with someone like an Amazon or someone like a Home Depot, just to name a large vendor, or a Walmart, we can make sure that we're covering the notifications and transaction types that they require you to have, and we can help make sure that's a good fit for you.
Thanks, Nick. And then the second question is, do you have an integration with Amazon's Vendor Central program?
We do, yes. With True Commerce, certainly, and then also Edisoft, we can connect to Amazon. We will fulfill all of the different requirements that Amazon requires you to do, including notifications and shipments, to stay in compliance with their rules, so you can continue to sell on their web store, and certainly can provide more information on that. But yes is the answer. We have lots of clients that are selling on Amazon here, and staying in compliance with what Amazon requires. Good question.
Perfect. Thanks, Nick. I don't see any other questions coming in, so I think we can move along to warehouse management solutions.
Okay, I'm going to stop my share and I'll hand it over to you, Ian.
So when we're talking about our warehouse management, normally what we're thinking about is a few basic things. So most people typically think about warehouse management as just being limited to what we actually see physically, where our stock is, where we're managing our inventory. And so you're typically looking at guidance for efficient putting away and for packing your inventory, and for doing inventory counting or cycle counting. That's quite often what people think that warehouse management is about. And certainly we have tools that we're going to look at this afternoon that handle warehouse management at that kind of simplified level. And then we'll also circle back to look at really what warehouse management can be extended to do for us more when we think further about an entire portfolio of WMS solutions. So the first thing we're going to look at is understanding where we have things in our warehouse and how we can efficiently move around to go ahead and get things picked or to be put away from either our sales orders, if we need to pick stuff for those, or to certainly put stuff away that comes in on our purchase orders. So we're going to look at adding a layer of granularity to our Sage software that otherwise wouldn't be there, by enhancing that with a solution by one of our favorite vendors, Orchid Solutions, who, for those guys that have followed us through this series of webinars, we've highlighted other Orchid solutions during this, and it's probable that many of you may actually be using an Orchid piece of software already. So we're going to take a look at Orchid bin tracking to be able to go ahead and give us that greater level of granularity in our stock management, and to be able to go ahead and have directed picking and packing. So as we know, Orchid is a third-party developer to Sage, but they develop only in the software developers kit, which means that their solutions are essentially a part of Sage. They use the Sage inventory items, they use the Sage vendors, they use the Sage customers. Everything leverages what is already in Sage, and they just really focus in on enhancing the functionality of the software that's already there. So as we go through this, I want to just go ahead and take a quick overview of bin tracking. Initially, when we first install the product, we have the options to define exactly how we want to use the solution. So we can see right here within our options menu that we're defining certain rules about where we want to be guided to put our inventory away as we receive it. And the system logically looks at the various kinds of Sage 300 standard programs and thinks through whether those actually culminate in an inventory receipt or an inventory shipment in simple terms. So obviously, if we're looking at a purchase order receipt, that would be inbound inventory. And so there are a set of rules that apply to those transactions as to how we want to manage our inventory in our bins. And in this particular configuration, we're saying that we want to put our inventory into the bin that it was last picked from. That gives us an almost certainty that that location is going to be empty because the last transaction that took place to it was a picking activity. So there's now hopefully some empty space. Conversely, when we're looking at our pick from location, although the wording is a little confusing on this, we're looking at the least recent put away. That essentially means the first location to which inventory was put. So that enables us to make sure that we have good stock rotation and we're essentially processing things on a FIFO basis. So typically, when we're going ahead and processing any item in any of these kinds of transactions, we can have certain rules about what items are bin tracked and which items are not. So in this particular configuration, I'm using ZZ to mean anything that might be a consumable, anything that I wouldn't really want to bin track. And so those items are denoted by a ZZ mask. So those would not be bin tracked. Otherwise, I could specify that only certain items have been tracked. So again, I have great granularity as to how I actually use the product. In terms of our day-to-day usage of the product, we're looking at our query screen here. And what this enables me to do, I'm also using, just as a brief mention here as a side note, this thing that's popped up is actually using ORCID notes. So even though I'm in the context of a bin tracking transaction and I'm making an inquiry, any item in here that I highlight, if there is a note that applies to that, then it dynamically changes and displays the note about that particular item on the fly as well. So this is an instance of one ORCID product enhancing another. And again, that's the beauty of using solutions that work within the software developer's kit, in that they all interact together all of the time. So within this particular screen, a few things I want to highlight. Firstly, if I go ahead and quickly modify this, this shows me a flexible structure to my bin numbering sequence. So in this particular example, I care about areas of my warehouse. I care about particular aisles that things are in. I care about the number of racks that I have or the number of vertical sections that I may have. And then I may have a certain bin at that location. And this tells me what item I have in that particular bin in this particular inventory warehouse. So I have 4 warehouses. This item is stocked in all 4 warehouses, and it tells me exactly where it is in each of those warehouses. The additional information that this gives me is it shows me the count that I have in my bin locations and the quantity that I have in inventory control proper. So if something has, for instance, become a problem with stock, maybe I've had some spillage in my warehouse and I've had to throw an item away, there wouldn't normally be a good Sage transaction to process that other than to go ahead and do an inventory adjustment. I may have processed this in this particular case using a bin tracking transaction to remove that inventory out and to either have put it into quarantine or damaged items or wherever else I needed to do that. So there could be certain items where at a granular level, I've caused disparity between my bin level count and the location quantity. So that's easily visible to me here in this grid. And if I only want to focus my attention on that, what I'm able to do, I'm just going to close this note screen real quick. What I'm able to do is to go through here, and by going ahead and putting my filter in place, I can say I only want to focus on those items that have variances. Similarly, you'll notice that I'm also leveraging lot numbers, and I'm leveraging serial numbers potentially in this. So if I want to have a look at the specific lot numbers that I have in here, I can do that simply by clicking here, and it shows me all of the individual lot numbers that I have as well. So very powerful drill down capabilities to really give me some additional information and more efficient control over my inventory. So let's go ahead and have a look what a day might look like in the instance of somebody going ahead and using this. So in my transaction screen, I have this picking status screen, and this shows me all of the Sage transactions or the transactions that originated in bin tracking. If I'm going ahead and moving stuff around in my warehouse, that wouldn't be a Sage transaction normally. There's no increase or decrease in the inventory. I'm just physically rearranging it so that I've perhaps got some additional space that's become free next to a certain number of a product. And I now have the ability to move something from elsewhere in my inventory so that it's efficiently kept right next to the other items. That would speed up picking later when I'm under the gun to get orders out. Better to go ahead and keep the warehouse guys busy, moving around the warehouse and streamlining things so that they can be more effective later when they have to really get stuff done. So in this particular case, there is no Sage, normal standard Sage transaction for this. So this shows up as none, but we're going to focus on the one above that. So this item, you can see it's color coded, that in this particular case, yellow means ready for pick or put away. That means that we can go ahead and process this. Similarly, up here, we've got some transactions that are not ready just yet, or where we've already started doing some picking and packing already. So I'm going to have a look at this transaction. The first thing that strikes me is that this came from an order entry shipment, and we have the ability to open the shipment document directly from the bin transfer if we need to do that. Also, we can see that there are two particular products that we need to pick. And because of the rules that we have set up in our bin tracking system, it's directing me to where I should be able to find those items. And if I had set up auto pick, assuming that I have my inventory working accurately, then it would actually be able to go ahead and pre-populate this for me to show that I had already picked that information. And then I'd be ready to just close out this document and to potentially create the invoice if I wanted to go ahead and generate the invoice from the warehouse. The other thing that we can do from this is to actually go ahead and have a look at the bin locations we have, and we can drill down on this. So I've got two items. It's suggesting I should come from this bin location. If I need to do a split bin, it's easy for me to just click through to that, and then I can add a second row to this data and change that I pulled one from this location and one from that one. So perhaps somebody in the warehouse had moved something and they hadn't updated the bin location. That would be an instance where the auto pick might not be working effectively, and I need to manually adjust where I actually pulled that product from. So pretty good level of flexibility there in a relatively inexpensive tool to be able to go ahead and get to a whole different layer of managing your inventory. So going forward, I'm going to circle back to my PowerPoint again, and I want to ask, is that really sufficient for our needs if we're doing full-blown warehouse management? What am I looking for when I invest money in a warehouse management system, or even if we extend it further, to become a complete supply chain management tool? So some of the things that I would do is I'd probably look for how can I do more business or generate more sales, and I don't want to have to add more staff or more space. That's a typical candidate for us that wants to be looking at implementing warehouse management. Or I've got somebody that wants to maximize their efficiency in the space that they have available. Or currently they're not being able to find inventory very effectively in the warehouse. So they think that they've got problems with demand or supply, or potentially they really do, because they're not working effectively with their vendors to understand exactly what their end-to-end supply chain model looks like, and to be able to get that product in and out of the warehouse effectively. Of course, by using barcode scanners, we spoke about using that in conjunction with bin tracking. We should have avoided the error of manual entry. And so we would have improved order accuracy and also greater visibility of our inventory. We've just spoken about faster picking and putting away. So those are some of the reasons why somebody might implement bin tracking, implement a warehouse management system. But if we extend that further yet, we can also go ahead, as Nick alluded to when we were speaking about EDI, we can obviously integrate with shippers. We can go ahead and generate automatically bills of lading or advanced shipment notifications. Quite a lot of small to medium-sized businesses, they operate on the basis of having to do less than truckload shipping or truckloads, particularly when they're doing LTL. Critically important to go ahead and be able to manage those freight costs. So maybe there's an opportunity working with the freight company to take advantage of some advanced route management and be able to go ahead and know that you could do 2 or 3 drops on the same item. And of course, we want the ability to be able to integrate with third-party logistic providers, or what's now called 4PL, whereas you completely outsource your entire supply chain management from order fulfillment, the freight, even the restocking of your inventory, managing the inventory level. It is possible as a small business to actually outsource all of that as well. So the right warehouse management system or supply chain tool would absolutely enable all of these capabilities. So rather than looking at a bin tracking model, we could be looking at something far more complex like this. So we have our typical warehouse management system sitting in the middle of this diagram, since that's still the hub of what we're doing. And of course, we're looking at our stock and movement between different warehouses. We're looking at managing our suppliers using barcodes, receiving, picking, dispatching, and so on and so forth. But then, as I was just speaking about earlier, we're then really also going ahead and putting feelers out and integrating into fleet software. How much is it costing us for to operate our own fleet? Where is the fleet? We can do GPS integration so that we can provide details to our customers as to when they should expect things to happen. And also extending that to freight. When we're sending stuff overseas, we might be working with container companies, or we could be working with shipping companies or airlines to be able to happen as well. So all of these capabilities exist within the extended WMS suite. So we've actually got a success story that's on the High Jump website, who is one of our WS partners. A customer of ours based in Texas implemented warehouse management, and just a little story about what happened with them. So Steve and Joseph used to be a company that struggled to get all of its orders out every single day. You know, they would always have stuff that was on back order that couldn't be dealt with. Just the whole process of packing and communicating with their shipping companies and getting items picked up from their warehouses to be able to go ahead and get it delivered to their customers was just a huge undertaking for them. And so they went, after implementing WMS, they went from a status of never being able, or seldom being able to get their orders out every single day, to the point where now nothing is carried over on most days. Similarly, in terms of efficiency, prior to implementing WMS, the largest day that they'd had in terms of shipping orders was $115,000. After implementing it, they were up to $185,000 a day. So you can see how $70,000 of orders getting out in a single day certainly makes a good value proposition for somebody who's looking at investing in a WMS system. And also in terms of productivity, there's a direct benefit to the costs of running your supply chain. So they took advantage of the reporting capabilities of WMS, and they actually did an analysis, since they're a somewhat seasonal business. They did an analysis of how long it took them to do a task before they had WMS and how long they did it after WMS. So after implementing WMS, they were able to go ahead and have an 8-man team that logged 562 man hours to do a particular job. When they looked at the same kind of period for the year prior to that, they had to have double the people, 16 people, and they had 1,031 hours used instead. So that's almost a 50%, or almost 100% improvement in their productivity, and a 50% reduction in the overall time man hours that it took them to do it. So pretty compelling proposition when you start going ahead and looking at things that way. I'll take a break at this point for questions.
Thanks, Ian. We did have a few questions that came in, so we can begin. It says, first one is, can we add warehouse management in stages?
Yes, absolutely you can. The system is modular. So you can start out very simply by just going ahead and looking at doing something with bin tracking and going ahead and optimizing your own warehouse first. For many companies, that's a good starting point, so that as they're then working more effectively with their third-party logistics providers and they've got inventory moving in and out at a quicker rate of knots, they're able to have the efficiency in their warehouse first.
Thanks. Another one that came in, it says, we use co-packers for our production and packaging. Would I be able to manage delivery schedules and coordinate with our suppliers with WMS?
Yeah, actually, that's a good example. I actually worked with a company previously that was a food distributor. And quite often what you'll see with certain food items is they might be bundled together, right? So you may have one product in one package and a completely different product in another package, which come from separate manufacturing entities. So what that customer was able to do using WMS was to go ahead and manage its distribution center and to then go ahead and provide full transparency to both co-packers. The first one would go ahead and produce product A, and then the manufacturer of product B would know exactly where that was in the manufacturing process and when to expect it coming to their facility to be able to go ahead and work on product B. So again, with food, it was important to get that timing absolutely right so that both products manufacture completed around the same time. And it was a case of going ahead and having customer A put in their product into their particular jars, sending that over to company B, who had already put their product into their jars, and they were ready to then go ahead and bundle those things together in a third piece of packaging before it was then sent out to the distribution center and onto the grocery store. So absolutely, co-packers and the entire coordination of those can be done.
Perfect, thank you. Looks like we have two more questions that came in. So another one is, our company has different warehouses with different layouts. Can I use bin tracking?
Yes, absolutely you can. So as we were looking in the bin tracking setup, there is no, so when I'm in here and I'm looking at our bin setup, there is no restriction to the way that you number a bin. So if in one location you actually have racking that's, X number of racks high and so on and so forth, and then in the next warehouse, all you have is products that are on the floor, you could absolutely go ahead and have a different bin number and a bin numbering sequence in that second warehouse. No restrictions.
Perfect. And then the last one that came in, it says, how would you do your physical inventory if you use bin tracking?
Well, that's a good question. So there is physical inventory directly built into bin tracking. So what happens here is that you generate your inventory worksheet the same as you would if you were doing the process in inventory control module. And then the beauty of this is that once you've run that out, let's see if I have one that's already generated. It'd be handy if there is. It'd save me having to generate one. Yeah, so in this particular case, what I'm doing is I'm actually going ahead and doing my inventory within a particular warehouse, but I can do it by bin. So in this particular instance, when you're doing physical inventory normally in Sage, you're used to going ahead and trying to do a count of all of the products within your warehouse. And you probably have to go ahead and write down a number of different subtotals to add things up to then figure out, did we capture everything or not? And sometimes, it becomes a mess. I've seen it myself. So you've got people working in all directions saying, oh, I think we got some over here in this area and there's some over here. And quite often things get missed. But when you're doing it using bin tracking, you eliminate that because you can split the report and send different people off to different parts of the warehouse, knowing that this is structured by bin number. So they can go through the bin numbers, and in this particular case, in this one bin, I've got 3 different products. And it tells me the count of each of those products that should be in those bins, and even down to the lot number as well. And if we're looking at this first item, you can see right here that that is in this bin, and it's also in this bin as well. So totally independently, somebody can be walking around with a barcode scanner doing inventory in the second location, or even the third location in this particular case, simultaneously, and know that the sum of those three items is going to comprise the total inventory count that we have. And then when you post this, you have exactly the same functionality as you have within the inventory control physical inventory, that when you go ahead and you post this reconciliation back up to Sage, it then does the inventory adjustment at the main inventory control location level for you. Good question.
Thanks, Dan. I think that's all the questions we have on for this section, so I think we can move on to our final Sage Alerts and workflow.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Stephen. So as we're working with the alerts and workflow product, this is essentially a back office application. It's not something that an end user is normally interacting with. The whole purpose or premise of using this tool is to ensure that our end users are receiving information or having it delivered to them, rather than actually having to go ahead and hunt and peck. So the tool is really divided into two main areas. It's called alerts and workflow. Forgive me, I've got an annoying screen refresh going on here. Let me just quickly turn that off. There you go. So the product is mainly driven by two different factors, one of which is the alerts, whereby you could get an email or you could have a text message or something notifying you of something that needs your attention. Or the second part of that is a workflow, whereby you can say, if one data event takes place, I want something else to happen. So for example, if a customer has not paid their invoices within a certain time frame, you can automatically have the system put that customer on hold. And you could also go ahead and have an alert as well, saying that this customer has been put on hold for failure to pay their bills. And you can even take that one step further to say, I want to notify the customer that they've been put on hold. And you could generate a letter that automatically goes to them that say, unfortunately, we've had no option but to put your account on hold pending resolution of your account. So you can extend that thinking as far as your mind is capable of thinking about what is important to you within your business. So let's go ahead and take a quick look. The screen itself is very simple. I'll keep this short. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. The screen is very simple, basically three main areas. There's an admin area, there's where we design the events that we want to have happening, and then of course, where there's a monitor that we can see what's going on. So let's take a quick look in our event designer here at certain subscribers that we have. So a subscriber is somebody that would be consuming data from an alert or as a consequence of a workflow taking place. In this particular case, I have myself set up as a subscriber to certain activities, as a subset of the finance team in this particular case. And so I have various applications. Each one of these is actually a common link to a common database. It doesn't have to just be Sage data. Pretty much any data that you have access to can be monitored, and you can get alerts against that. So that might be CRM data. It could be a web store that you have access to. Any information at all that needs to have actions against it can be put through this. And so if I'm looking at my accounts payable module, for instance, I have a number of different events set up. And so I'm going to just quickly talk through, with the time that we've got remaining here, what happens when I set up a new vendor. So I've designed the new vendor to go ahead and basically sniff my Sage database. And whenever there is a new vendor created, I want it to be able to go ahead and send an email, and I want it to be able to send a file. So the file might be a quick report that goes ahead and shows exactly what that screen configuration looks like. And I want that to be emailed out when this alert runs. Okay. So again, when I add a new vendor, that should happen, and it's going to do a check on this every 1 minute. So what happens then is that when this task is actually set to run, it sits in my scheduler. And so then I can monitor that this activity should be running every 1 minute. That's consistent with what I was just saying. And if I look at that yet further, I can go ahead and see that this particular activity is it's checked at this point, and so it's going to be triggered when that time goes off. And add a new vendor, of course, then it's going to be triggered to go ahead and send me that email. So pretty simple to set up, certainly very, very effective as to what it can do. If you want to know more about alerts and workflow, please reach out to your account manager. I'll stop for questions.
Thanks, Ian. One of the questions that came in, it says, can I use alerts with bin tracking?
Yes, absolutely, you can. Yes. Anything that you have data about, that you have access to, you can use with alerts and workflow.
Perfect. And then it looks like we had one more that came in. Do I need alerts with WMS?
That's a good question, actually. It depends how much of WMS you want to use. So the WMS system does have its own alerting module built into it. It depends if you're actually taking things to that level or not. If you want to, because the WMS suite is modular, if you wanted to go ahead and just use certain parts of that and you didn't include the part that came with alerts, then absolutely you could go ahead and use Sage Alerts and Workflow rather than actually buying their alerts product. But it does have its own alerts engine built into the WS system as well.
Perfect. I think that's all the questions we have. So again, guys, thank you all for joining us for our final episode of Working in the New Normal. This wraps up our presentation, but before you go, I wanted to show you guys a quick recap. So we went through many products such as Orchid Extender, Auto Simply, Sage Alerts and Workflow, Document Management, EDI, and many more. Each of these products focuses on ways that you can take back control, automate your business processes, enhance visibility, and become more efficient across your teams. If you missed one of these episodes or would like to rewatch one, please let your account manager know, and they can provide you with a video link. Our account managers will be following up to get your feedback or to answer any questions that you may have. But if you want to learn more, you can always email us at am@acumenfl.com or give us a call at 407-965-2411. Our next webinar, we plan on having a ransomware as the topic, so please be on the lookout for that. Again, thank you guys for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you guys again soon.